Welcome to our immigration briefing show. Today, we're diving into some intense stories from around the globe. First up, in Chicago, federal agents came under fire during immigration enforcement, with a man in a black Jeep shooting at them amid protests in Little Village. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the situation is tense and ongoing. Next, a boat carrying hundreds of migrants from Myanmar capsized in the Indian Ocean, leaving at least 1 dead and 10 rescued. The perilous journey highlights the dangerous crossings many Rohingya Muslims are risking to escape persecution, with authorities racing to find those still missing. Finally, across the Atlantic, the UK is eyeing Denmark's strict immigration policies to overhaul its own system. With tighter family reunification rules and faster deportations, the UK aims to curb illegal crossings and manage asylum claims more effectively. Please continue to stay tuned for the full details. The Associated Press reports that Chicago has become a flashpoint for intense clashes between federal immigration enforcement and local residents. During Operation Midway Blitz, a series of raids targeting alleged dangerous criminals, protesters gathered in the Little Village neighborhood to voice their opposition. Tensions escalated when shots were fired at U.S. Border Patrol agents, with authorities describing the gunfire as coming from a man in a black Jeep, who remains at large. Despite the violence, no injuries have been reported, but the protests have led to damaged police vehicles and thrown objects like bricks and paint cans at agents' vehicles. The situation reflects growing unrest as federal agents, armed and assertive, face resistance from community members who view these operations as aggressive and disruptive, especially following a recent court injunction limiting their use of force. Yahoo US highlights that during these tumultuous enforcement actions, gunfire erupted in Chicago's Little Village neighborhood, with a man firing at Border Patrol agents amid protests. The incident occurred during a series of raids that have sparked widespread demonstrations, including the detention of over 3,000 individuals, some of whom are U.S. citizens or have no criminal record. The protests have included mothers protesting outside detention centers and confrontations with police, illustrating the community's deep concern over the aggressive tactics employed. DHS reports an increase in assaults and obstructions targeting federal law enforcement over the past 2 months, emphasizing the volatile atmosphere surrounding Operation Midway Blitz. The raids, which began in September, aim to apprehend individuals with no legal right to reside in the U.S., but have also resulted in violence and community outrage. The Associated Press also recounts a tragic incident in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, where a man named Carlos Zapata appears to have had a seizure during a tense confrontation with immigration agents. Video footage shows Zapata trembling and losing consciousness as agents surround his family's car, seeking his wife, Juliana Ojeda Montoya, wanted for a stabbing and other charges. Zapata claims that agents pushed and pressed on his neck, causing him to faint, but Homeland Security officials dismiss his account, alleging he faked the seizure to evade arrest. The department emphasizes that medical personnel found no legitimate emergency, and Zapata was later handcuffed after regaining consciousness. This incident underscores the contentious and often chaotic nature of immigration enforcement, with families caught in the crossfire of federal operations and conflicting narratives about the use of force. The Sydney Morning Herald reports a startling revelation from Dr. Derek Elias, a senior official from the Home Affairs Department, who has courageously blown the whistle on widespread corruption within Australia's offshore detention system. Elias claims that millions of taxpayer dollars have been squandered on phantom or unnecessary services on Nauru, facilitated by a corrupt environment fostered by negligent contract renewals and overpayments. He alleges that this systemic rorting has likely led to bribery and kickbacks involving Nauruan officials and Australian companies like Construct, which charged exorbitant fees, including millions for insurance premiums allegedly used for personal luxuries by the contractor's executives. Elias's evidence has become a critical part of a federal police corruption investigation, Operation Bernie Beveridge, which scrutinizes how these funds have been misappropriated, including through activities like inflating subcontract costs and concealing illicit insurance practices. Despite the Department of Home Affairs claiming reforms and tighter controls, Elias remains convinced that the corruption persists, and he describes a culture of silence and complicity that discouraged questioning these practices, an environment he now deems a moral obligation to expose for the public's awareness. The Associated Press details a tragic maritime disaster involving a boat carrying approximately 300 Myanmar migrants, primarily Rohingya Muslims fleeing persecution, which capsized in the treacherous waters near Malaysia and Thailand. Rescue efforts recovered at least 10 survivors and 1 body, with fears that many more remain missing in an increasingly perilous smuggling route exploited by organized cross-border syndicates. The boat's departure from Myanmar's Rakhine state underscores the ongoing plight of the Rohingya, who face decades of persecution and displacement. Malaysia, a key destination for these refugees, has a history of turning away boats to control the influx, despite accepting some on humanitarian grounds. The incident highlights the dangerous realities faced by vulnerable migrants risking their lives on perilous sea journeys, often with their fates intertwined with criminal networks that profit from their desperation. Yahoo US reports a disturbing incident involving the arrest of a man outside the DuPage County Courthouse by federal immigration agents, captured on video. The family of the man, who was present in court for an unrelated matter, describes a distressing scene where agents approached their vehicle and detained him without a clear judicial warrant, raising questions about the legality of the operation. His daughter, who was driving, expressed fear and uncertainty about her father's whereabouts, especially considering reports of inhumane treatment at the Broadview ICE detention facility. This incident underscores the ongoing tensions and fears surrounding immigration enforcement in the United States, with families witnessing loved ones being taken into custody under circumstances that appear to bypass proper legal procedures. The event has sparked concern over the aggressive tactics employed by immigration authorities and the broader impact on immigrant communities, emphasizing the human cost of strict immigration policies. South China Morning Post reports that Jeremy Renner has vehemently denied allegations made by filmmaker Yi Zhou, who accused the Marvel star of sending her unsolicited sexual messages and threatening to involve U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, to intimidate her. Zhou, who collaborated with Renner on a documentary and an animated film, claimed that Renner initiated contact out of the blue in June, sending her inappropriate images and professing interest in a long-term relationship, which she believed due to his sincerity. She further alleged that Renner entered into written agreements with her production company but then refused to promote the projects, while also threatening her with immigration enforcement when she privately confronted him about his misconduct. Renner's lawyer dismissed these accusations as false and insisted that Zhou had been pursuing Renner aggressively after a brief, consensual encounter in July, which he claimed was the extent of their interaction. Zhou responded with screenshots backing her claims and asserted that multiple women had approached her with similar allegations, emphasizing the pattern of misconduct she believed Renner exhibited. The Independent echoes these sentiments, emphasizing Renner's denial of sending explicit images to Zhou, and highlighting her accusations of harassment and threats. Zhou recounted her initial contact with Renner via WhatsApp, where he allegedly sent her unwanted images, and described how their interactions escalated into a supposed romantic pursuit that she believed was genuine. She shared her fears during a meeting at Renner's home, where he reportedly drank heavily and yelled for hours, leaving her feeling unsafe. Zhou also accused Renner of using her for professional collaboration while dismissing her efforts to promote their joint projects, and of threatening to call ICE when she questioned his behavior. She further claimed that others have come forward with similar stories, painting a picture of a pattern of abusive behavior. Renner's legal team maintains that Zhou's account is a product of her harassment of Renner and her attempts to manipulate the narrative, citing their single meeting and her persistent pursuit of him despite his disinterest. Meanwhile, BBC's coverage shifts focus to the political arena, where Zoran Mamdani, having recently won his bid to become the mayor of New York City, faces the looming threat of federal interference under President Donald Trump. Mamdani's victory speech directly challenged Trump, prompting a sharp response from the former president, who labeled him a communist and threatened to cut federal funding to the city. Trump's history of meddling, ranging from immigration raids to attempts at defunding city projects, poses a significant obstacle to Mamdani's ambitious plans to reduce living costs and expand social programs. Experts warn that Trump might further hamper Mamdani's efforts by withholding billions in federal funds and deploying law enforcement to challenge the city's policies, especially regarding immigration. Mamdani's stance as an immigrant himself and his vow to resist federal overreach suggest a tense political landscape ahead, where the city's financial stability and policy goals could be severely impacted by federal actions, requiring strategic responses and legal challenges to safeguard New York's autonomy and progress. The CBC reports on the tense relationship between President Trump and U.S. mayors, highlighting how his confrontational approach could backfire. New York City's elected mayor, Zoran Mamdani, openly criticized Trump, who responded with threats to cut federal funding and deploy federal troops to cities like Chicago and Los Angeles. Experts warn that such tactics could harm urban residents by reducing essential federal support for housing, public safety, and immigration enforcement. While Trump has occasionally backed down after discussions with city leaders, the overarching message is that aggressive federal actions might alienate crucial political and economic constituencies in these cities, potentially undermining his broader political goals. The article emphasizes that cooperation and dialogue could be more effective, especially in a second term where Trump might aim to push his agenda without alienating key urban voters and elites. The BBC presents Denmark's tough immigration policies as a model that the UK might emulate under Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's upcoming reforms. Denmark's measures include restricting family reunification, expelling more individuals based on criminal activity, and limiting residency rights for those living in parallel societies. Denmark's approach also involves stringent language, employment, and financial requirements for newcomers, aiming to preserve societal cohesion. While the UK government is considering similar restrictions, there is internal party opposition, with critics arguing that Denmark's policies are too extreme and echo far-right rhetoric. The Danish experience shows that strict immigration controls can reduce asylum claims and foster societal stability, but critics warn that adopting such policies could risk alienating immigrant communities and undermining human rights commitments, raising questions about the balance between security and compassion. The Toronto Star discusses the recent shift in Canada's immigration strategy, driven by former Immigration Minister Mark Miller, who introduced reforms to slow down the rapid influx of newcomers. Under the new plan, Canada aims to admit 380,000 permanent residents annually for the next 3 years, a number Miller considers optimal for economic stability and population growth. Miller also reduced temporary foreign workers and international students to address housing and healthcare concerns, emphasizing quality over quantity in immigration. However, the new policies have sparked debate over their impact on refugee protection and the integration of long-term residents. Miller advocates for a balanced approach, acknowledging sacrifices but stressing the importance of maintaining Canada's reputation as a generous yet sustainable immigration nation. The article underscores how political decisions on immigration levels reflect broader priorities around economic stability, social cohesion, and humanitarian commitments. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
Waking up to wonders, checking nature blunders. Got our rockets flying while the oceans are sighing. Lasers in the sky now.